I finally found someone who makes the years feel light again. At 55, imagine that. Who'd have thought? But then, last Tuesday, she handed me a single sheet of paper, just a regular piece of printer paper, and said, with a voice as steady as a surgeon's, "It's them or me." On that page, stark and unforgiving, were the names of every person, every place, every cherished memory that had filled the 3 decades before she arrived in my life. Tonight, I need to tell you how I answered. It wasn't easy. It wasn't even a choice I thought I'd ever have to make. We met on the produce aisle of all places. I was just going through the motions, honestly, buying apples out of sheer habit, a routine that had become a kind of quiet comfort since Linda passed. She, on the other hand, was there with purpose, squeezing avocados like she was testing the very resilience of life itself, or maybe just making sure her guacamole would be perfect. I couldn't help myself. I joked that avocados were just apples that went to college, all sophisticated and a little harder to figure out. And she laughed. Oh man, that laugh. It was honest, unguarded, a sound that cut through the everyday grocery store hum and went straight to a part of me I thought had long since gone dormant. 2 cups of coffee later, which turned into 3, then 4, I knew her story. Her father left when she was 8, leaving a void she'd spent a lifetime trying to fill. She'd renovated 3 houses, each project a testament to her fierce independence and her ability to rebuild. And she still, to this day, cried at the end of Casablanca. In those hours, I felt something I hadn't felt in years, a genuine, unforced connection. It wasn't just about shared interests. It was about shared humanity, the quiet understanding of lives lived, scars earned. Dating at our age isn't candlelit glances and whispered promises like it was in our 20s. No, it's 2 histories, rich and complicated, trying to figure out how to share one bench without crowding each other out. My bench, well, it already carried the deep carvings of a 27-year marriage, a love story that had ended far too soon when cancer, that cruel thief, took Linda from me. I never planned to add another name to that bench. I thought my story was written, the last chapter penned. But Helen was different. She listened to the Linda's stories without flinching, without a hint of jealousy or impatience. She understood that Linda was a part of me, not a rival. She even helped me box up Linda's winter coats, a task I'd put off for years, so the closet didn't shout with her absence every time I reached for a jacket. It was an act of profound kindness, a gesture that spoke volumes about her capacity for empathy, or so I thought at the time. It felt like she was acknowledging my past, not trying to erase it. For 6 months, it felt like borrowed time, a precious gift I hadn't earned. We took long, meandering walks after work, the kind where you just talk and listen, truly listen. We cooked complicated recipes neither of us would have dared tackle alone, filling my once quiet kitchen with laughter and the aroma of garlic and possibility. We traded books like teenagers trading mixtapes, each recommendation a window into the other's soul. She met my kids, grown, wary, and fiercely protective of their mother's ghost. And she won them over, not by trying to replace Linda, but by asking about their careers, their lives, their dreams, instead of trying to insert herself into mine. Friends, those well-meaning busybodies, would slap my back in the grocery store, their whispers loaded with approval and relief. "You deserve this, buddy." Maybe I did. Maybe we both did. Maybe, just maybe, I was ready to carve a new name onto that bench right alongside the old. The first hint, the faintest tremor of what was to come, arrived on a road trip to the coast. We were cruising along, windows down, music playing, just enjoying the easy rhythm of our new life together. Then we passed it, a small, unassuming cemetery where Linda is buried. It's a ritual I've kept every March since she passed, a quiet pilgrimage to place yellow roses, her favorite. I pulled the car over, the sudden stop a jarring note in our otherwise harmonious journey. Helen stayed in the car, her gaze fixed straight ahead, almost deliberately. I spent a few moments there, a familiar ache in my chest, the fresh scent of roses mixing with the damp earth. When I climbed back in, my cheeks damp with unshed tears, she didn't turn to me. She just stared straight ahead, a tightness in her jaw, and said, her voice flat, I wish you could leave the dead to themselves. I remember a chill running down my spine, but I quickly rationalized it. I thought she meant the tombstones, the physical markers. I told myself she was just uncomfortable with death, not with my grief. Weeks later, the next subtle shift. My phone still blinked with Linda's best friend's name every few days. Barb. She'd been my rock, my lifeline, a constant reminder of Linda's vibrant spirit and a gentle check-in on my well-being. Barb's just checking on me. I explained, a little too quickly, perhaps. Helen nodded, a slow, deliberate movement, then whispered, her voice barely audible, "Maybe it's time Barb lets you go." The air in the room suddenly felt thin. I laughed it off, trying to lighten the mood, but the sound felt brittle, like thin ice cracking underfoot. It wasn't just about Barb. It felt like a dismissal of a crucial part of my support system, a subtle chipping away at my connections to the past. Then, I started noticing the omissions, the small, almost imperceptible erasures. My wedding album, a heavy, leather-bound book filled with precious memories, was missing from its usual spot on the bookshelf. Linda's ceramic mixing bowl, a sentimental piece we'd bought on our honeymoon, had been relocated to the attic, tucked away amongst forgotten holiday decorations. A cherished photo of our old golden retriever, a goofy, loyal companion who had seen us through so much, was replaced by a sleek, framed picture of Helen's rather aloof cat. Each incident, I told myself, was a coincidence, a rearrangement. Love, after all, rearranges furniture. That's normal, right? We adapt. We make space for new lives, new tastes. But then the unsettling thought began to creep in. What if it wasn't just rearranging furniture? What if it was starting to rearrange memory itself? What if the past, which had shaped me into the man she supposedly loved, was becoming a threat to our future? The questions were unsettling, but I pushed them down, desperate to believe in the beautiful new chapter that was unfolding. Tuesday, the day the subtle became stark. The rain was ticking on the skylight, a gentle, rhythmic sound that usually lulled me, but today it felt like a countdown. She set the page between our coffee mugs, a crisp, white rectangle on the warm wood of the table, like a referee placing a whistle, signaling the start of a match I hadn't prepared for. 32 lines, single-spaced. The heading, written in her elegant hand, read, "For our future." My stomach knew before my eyes did. A cold dread seeped into my bones, a premonition of something irrevocable. I picked it up, my fingers already feeling clumsy. Item 1. No contact with any friend who knew Linda personally. Item 4. Get rid of the house where you lived with her. Item 9. Stop attending the annual charity 5K held in Linda's name. Item 15. Delete all photos prior to 2021. Item 21. Tell your children not to speak of your previous marriage when I'm present. I read every demand twice, then a third time, my mind desperately searching for a punchline, a hidden camera, a sign that this was some elaborate, twisted test. There wasn't one. Her face was impassive, her eyes clear and unblinking. She spoke then, her voice calm and measured, the way a surgeon might explain a complex procedure. Quick, precise, no anesthetic, no room for debate. "I need to feel like your life began with me," she said, her words cutting through the air. "Otherwise, I'm just a caretaker of ruins, living in the shadow of a ghost." The phrase hung there, heavy and accusatory. I heard the implied message. My past was a burden, a dilapidated building she refused to inhabit. I swallowed hard, my throat suddenly dry. I asked if we could negotiate, if there was any room for compromise, any way to integrate, not obliterate. She shook her head, a slow, definitive movement. "Love me wholly, completely, without reservation, or we're done." My hands trembled so hard the paper rattled, the rustle a counterpoint to the ticking rain. 30 years of my life, a lifetime of love and loss, compressed into a brutal ultimatum. I thought of the night Linda died, her frail hand squeezing mine, her voice a whisper, "Keep living, my love. Promise me." I thought of my kids' first steps against that worn kitchen floor, the same floor Helen now wanted me to sell, to erase. I thought of the annual charity race, the one where volunteers wore Linda's favorite shade of purple, their faces bright with purpose as they raised money for hospice care, a testament to her enduring spirit. Erase all that, all those people, all those places, all those memories that had shaped me, carved me, taught me how to love and how to grieve. What would be left of me then? Would I even recognize myself? The demand wasn't just for my future. It was for my very identity. I didn't answer right away. Couldn't. My mind was a whirlwind of shock and disbelief. I just stood there, the paper still clutched in my trembling hand, the rain still ticking on the skylight. Then, without a word, I turned and walked out, got into my car, and drove. I drove aimlessly until I found myself at the lake, a familiar refuge. I parked under the ancient oaks, their branches heavy with rain, and turned off the radio, welcoming the silence. The rain hammered the windshield, mimicking the chaotic storm raging inside me. For the next 48 hours, the world outside faded, replaced by an agonizing replay of my entire adult life. I replayed every mile of the past, proposing to Linda at 25, young and foolish and impossibly in love. Buying the creaky, charming old house at 30, full of dreams and plans for a family. Holding Linda's hand through chemo at 52, her spirit still vibrant despite the ravages of illness. Burying her at 53, the earth cold and final. Should I, saw those years off like dead branches as if they never happened? As if that love, that life, that grief hadn't fundamentally shaped every fiber of my being? It felt like trying to amputate a limb, a part of my very soul. The idea was not just painful, it was impossible. My past wasn't a collection of relics to be discarded. It was the foundation upon which I stood. I tried, truly, to view it from Helen's side. I tried to understand the depth of her need, the insecurity that might drive such a drastic demand. She had spent decades proving herself, to contractors during house flips, to a father who never stayed, proving herself to ex-husbands who, she'd once confided, saw her as optional, a temporary fixture. She wanted to be someone's entire horizon, the sun and moon and stars of their existence. She believed, perhaps, that deleting my past would widen her sky, make her shine brighter, unencumbered by shadows. Maybe fear, that primal, often irrational emotion, needs big, dramatic gestures to feel secure. Maybe her demand wasn't about malice, but about a desperate need to feel whole and central. But understanding didn't make it right. In my turmoil, I sought counsel. I called my daughter, my voice rough with emotion, and asked her what she'd do. She sighed through the phone, a sound heavy with her own wisdom. "Dad," she said softly, "love isn't a demolition job. It's about building something new on what's already there." My son, ever the pragmatist, texted back a simple but profound message. "You taught us roots matter, Dad." And then there was Barb, Linda's best friend, who answered on the first ring, her voice immediately attuned to my distress. "Losing her nearly killed you," she said, her words gentle but firm. "Don't lose yourself now, too." Her words were a gut punch, a stark reminder of the fragile balance I had found, the self I had painstakingly rebuilt after Linda's death. The rain stopped. The clouds broke, and the setting sun turned the lake water into shimmering copper. I still didn't have the definitive answer, not in words anyway, but I felt the shape of it forming within me, like a bone that refuses to break, hardening with a quiet, undeniable resolve. It was a choice that would define me, not just for Helen, but for myself. Thursday morning. The 48 hours had passed, and the decision, though painful, was clear. I met Helen at the botanical garden, the same place where we'd first taken photos together, our faces bright with new love and possibility. Spring bulbs flared yellow and reckless, a riot of defiant color against the lingering chill of the morning. It felt like a stage set for an ending and a beginning, all at once. I handed her a single sheet of paper, my own list, only 5 lines long, but each one etched with conviction. Keep every memory. Keep every friend. Keep the house for now. Keep honoring Linda. Keep us if you can. She read it, her lips tightening into a thin, unyielding line. Her gaze, when it met mine, was cold. "You're choosing ghosts," she stated, her voice devoid of emotion, of final judgment. I looked back at her, my own resolve solidifying. "Memories aren't ghosts, Helen," I told her, my voice steady despite the tremor in my chest. "They're scaffolding. They're the framework that holds us up, the very structure of who we are. Tear it down, and the whole building folds." You don't get to ask someone to erase their past, to saw off decades of their life, and still expect them to be the person you fell in love with. That person wouldn't exist anymore. I told her I loved her, that I still loved her truly and deeply, but that love doesn't whitewash yesterday. It doesn't demand amnesia. Instead, true love, lasting love, adds new rooms onto the house. It doesn't demolish the existing structure. It builds, it expands, it integrates. It finds a way to honor what came before while making space for what is to come. She folded the paper into a tiny, precise square, a gesture that spoke volumes of her controlled anger, and slipped it into her pocket. "Then I guess we're finished," she whispered, her voice barely audible, swallowed by the vastness of the greenhouse glass that echoed her words with a hollow finality. There were no tears, not from her, not from me. Just a profound sense of loss, an even more profound sense of self-preservation. She turned and walked down the path lined with vibrant tulips, her back straight, her stride purposeful. And I let her go. I stood there, watching her disappear around the bend, the spring flowers blurring through my own unshed tears. Because asking someone to stay shouldn't cost them their soul, their history, their very identity, and asking me to stay at that price shouldn't cost me mine. It was a painful truth, but a necessary one. The first week after Helen left felt like a detox, a raw, aching emptiness that was both physical and emotional. Every morning, I woke with a jolt, expecting her call, hoping, irrationally, that she'd relent, that she'd say the ultimatum was only a test, a moment of fear that she regretted. But the phone stayed silent, a stark, unblinking reminder of the finality of her departure. I wandered through rooms that suddenly felt too big, too quiet, yet comfortingly familiar. The absence was palpable, a gaping hole where laughter and shared meals used to be. I cooked those complicated recipes we'd once enjoyed together, now alone. They tasted less like gourmet delights and more like healing, each bite a step towards reclaiming my own space, my own life. My friends, bless their hearts, knew instinctively what I needed. They arrived with pizza and bad jokes, their easy camaraderie a balm to my wounded spirit. My daughter, wise beyond her years, hugged me long enough to make up for every canceled answer I'd almost chosen, her embrace a silent affirmation of my decision. Barb, ever the steadfast friend, brought yellow roses, a quiet nod to Linda's enduring presence, and we walked the charity route early, before the official crowd, sharing stories in comfortable silences. Volunteers, recognizing me from past years, asked where Helen was. I simply said she'd moved on, and no one pressed, sensing the unspoken weight in my words. They understood, I think, that some part of me had to move on too, just not in the way Helen had demanded. I won't pretend there weren't nights. Oh, there were nights. Nights when I stared at that cursed sheet of demands, still crumpled in my bedside drawer, wondering if capitulation would have been easier, if bending to her will, erasing the past, would have brought a different kind of peace. The siren song of easier is powerful, especially when you're tired and hurting. But easier isn't the same as right. And at 55, you learn that some aches, some profound heartaches, aren't meant to be avoided. They plant flags, you see, deep within your soul, marking territories where new joy can find you later, joy that is built on an honest foundation, not on a lie of omission. These aches become part of your story, not something to be excised. Through all of this, I learned so much. I learned that ultimatums aren't love letters. They're invoices cold and demanding. Pay them, and you don't just lose a part of yourself. You mortgage your very soul, trading authenticity for temporary peace. I learned that holding on to the past isn't living in it, stuck in an endless loop of yesterday. No, it's letting it hold the measuring tape against every future promise, ensuring that what comes next is built on solid ground, informed by experience, not by erasure. My past isn't a burden, it's a blueprint. I learned that love at this age can still feel giddy, like a teenager's first crush, full of butterflies and breathless anticipation. But it should also, crucially, feel safe. And safety, true safety, doesn't demand amnesia. It doesn't ask you to forget who you are or where you came from. It embraces your whole story, knowing that every chapter, even the painful ones, has contributed to the person standing before them. I learned my story isn't a prologue someone else gets to edit or rewrite. It's a saga I keep authoring chapter by chapter, comma by comma. Anyone who insists on tearing out pages, on ripping out entire chapters, will eventually burn the whole book. My children, I realized, were watching. They were watching to see if I'd trade family history, their history, for a maybe, for a fragile new romance. I'm profoundly glad they saw me choose legacy, choose integrity, choose the enduring power of what truly matters. But most important, I learned that grief and new love can, in fact, coexist. One doesn't dishonor the other. Linda's memory can sit quietly, respectfully, in the corner of every room, a cherished presence. And Helen's laugh, even though it no longer fills my hallway, can still echo in the possibility of new connections. One is foundation, the bedrock of my being. One was possibility, a glimpse of what could be. Foundations keep you steady, grounded, rooted in who you are. Possibilities, however fleeting, remind you that you're still alive, still capable of growth, still open to the unexpected beauty of life. They are not mutually exclusive. They are two sides of the same human experience. If you've ever stood at a crossroads with your past on one shoulder, heavy with memories, and tomorrow on the other, uncertain and beckoning, you know the vertigo. That dizzying feeling of not knowing which way to turn. I'm still learning how to walk that line, how to balance the weight of what was with the promise of what could be without tipping over. If you want to hear where this road bends next, maybe even how I found the courage to open my heart to dating again after such a profound experience, hit subscribe and ring that notification bell. That way, you won't miss the next chapter of this journey. Your support, your engagement, truly keeps the camera rolling and these stories honest. Summer arrived anyway. Despite the emotional upheaval, the world kept spinning. Lawnmowers hummed like nothing had happened. A comforting, mundane soundtrack to a life that was slowly, steadily, finding its new rhythm. The quiet felt less like emptiness and more like space, room to breathe, to simply be. I decided it was time to actively seek out new experiences, to lean into the possibility I'd spoken of. I joined a hiking group for the Over 50 set, a motley crew of adventurers and storytellers. The first rule, I quickly discovered, was that you must tell the story of how you arrived at this trailhead, how you got here, to this moment, this path. I talked about Linda, about Helen, about choosing not to delete. Heads around the circle nodded, a silent, knowing acknowledgement. So many of us, I realized, carry similar edits we refuse to make, similar histories we hold dear. It was on one of these hikes, on a ridge overlooking the city, the urban sprawl a distant hum below, that I met Claire. She had a kind smile and eyes that held a depth of understanding. She noticed the faded bracelet I still wore, the one from the hospice walk, Linda's charity. She asked why I still wore it. I told her it reminded me that love sometimes ends, but its significance, its impact, never truly does. It becomes a part of you. She listened, then looked at me, a soft smile playing on her lips. I've got one too, she said, and rolled up her sleeve, revealing a similar, equally faded band on her own wrist. Turns out, she'd lost her husband 5 years earlier. There was an instant, unspoken connection, a shared understanding forged in the crucible of loss. We walked the descent side by side. No ultimatums, no demands, just parallel scars. Two souls who understood the landscape of grief and the quiet courage it takes to keep living. We're not rushing. There's no frantic need to fill a void, no desperate attempt to rewrite the past. We trade playlists, sharing the soundtracks of our lives. We swap childhood photos, laughing at the awkward haircuts and dated fashion. We meet for coffee on Sundays, the conversation easy and unforced, punctuated by comfortable silences. She invites me to her grandson's birthday party, a casual inclusion in her family life. I, in turn, invite her to the charity 5K, knowing she'll understand its significance. She doesn't ask me to clear space for her, to rearrange my life, or to erase my history. She just sets another chair at the table, a simple, profound gesture that speaks volumes. That's the fundamental difference I've come to realize between a demand and an invitation. One constricts, the other expands. People say that starting over after 50 is like replanting an old tree. Possible, yes, but risky, the roots too established, the trunk too set in its ways. I think it's more like grafting, new, vibrant branches fused onto a mature, resilient trunk. The tree bears hybrid fruit, some tangy with the taste of new experiences, some sweet with the familiar comfort of the past. You don't chop it down and start anew. You nurture the blend, honoring both the old and the new. It makes for a richer, more complex tree. Helen, in her own challenging way, taught me what I won't accept, the boundaries I must hold firm for my own well-being. Claire, with her quiet strength and understanding, is showing me what I can, what a healthy, respectful connection truly looks like. Both lessons, though vastly different in their delivery, matter immensely. I no longer flinch when Linda's name rises in conversation. In fact, I speak it first now, proudly, because a love that once was real still is its echoes woven into the fabric of my being. And when Claire talks about her late husband, about her history, I lean in, truly listen. Memory deserves witnesses, not erasure. Our pasts are not obstacles. They're the very ground we stand on. If someone asks you to choose between the life that shaped you, your loves, your losses, your very identity, and the romance that just arrived, remember this. The person handing you that bargain already doubts your wholeness. They see your past as a threat, not as an integral part of the masterpiece that is you. Don't prove them right by breaking yourself in half, by tearing out pages of your own story. Instead, offer them the entire mosaic, cracked tiles, bright shards, every single color, every nuanced memory. Offer them the full, complex picture, and let them decide if they can treasure it, if they can see the beauty in its entirety. If they walk away, protect your artwork. Protect your history. Someone will come along who sees not just the individual pieces, but the magnificent, irreplaceable masterpiece that you are. So here I am, same bench, same scars, but a new sunrise painting the horizon. If this story resonated with you, if it stung in a healing way, let me know in the comments below. Share your own impossible choices, your hard no's, your courageous second chapters. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and pass the link to anyone you know who might be stuck between love and legacy, wrestling with their own difficult decisions. We'll keep figuring this out together, one honest story at a time. Thanks for walking this mile with me. I'll see you on the next trail.